Hello everyone, I'm Liam, and today we're going to be talking about basic sketching in Solidworks. So basic sketching is a group of tools that's going to allow you to make the framework for the object that you design, and this is one of the first skills, probably the first skill you'll learn when you open Solidworks. You'll be playing around with different shapes and 2D objects, which we're going to focus on today. 3D is for more advanced stuff that you'll probably learn later on. And this is one of the first steps that you'll use when you're making stuff from scratch. And yeah, should be pretty easy. I'll show you the relations and smart dimensions that will go along with this, as those are also pretty crucial to basic sketching. So in a minute, I'm going to show you in SolidWorks how to do these types of sketches. So we have the line. This is the most basic form of sketching that you'll learn first, and there's a couple different ways to do that. You have center lines and midpoint. Center line is like a reference or construction line, and I'll show you that in a minute. Then we have the rectangle, a couple different ways to do that. Parallelogram, 3-point center and corner. And then there's a slot, where if you just think of this like a football field with the semicircles on the end, yeah, so that's what a slot looks like. A few different ways to do that. Then we have the regular circle, and they just gave us a couple of different ways to do that in SolidWorks. And then there's arcs. There's 3 different ways to do this, and I'll show you that. Then we have the polygon, and then we have text. And basically with the text you can write whatever you want on the design you're making. And for example, if you want to make an engraving, on your object, you can do that with text. So now that we're on SolidWorks, I'm just going to show you. So you make a new part, and you're going to open the sketch bar, and then you're going to click sketch, and you have the choice between 3 planes here, so it doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to do the front plane, and you can see this is the center, which I'm going to draw sketches on, some of them. And so here's your most basic form of sketching the line. So say I start from the center, I can kind of draw anywhere I want and just make a bunch of whatever kind of design I want, right? And the next one would be your center line, and so you're going to think of this as a construction line or a reference line, so it wouldn't actually be part of your drawing that you make, but you can make designs in reference to it. And I'll show you how that gets to use in something like the slot later on. And so the third one, the last line, the midpoint line, so this is just going to be like a line, but it extends in both directions. Pretty simple. And now we have the rectangles. So the first one is the corner rectangle, just the plain old basic rectangle, right? And then we have the center rectangle. So it starts from the center, as you can see, and same kind of rectangle. Yep. And then we have the 3-point corner rectangle. And as you can see, it draws the line here, and you just start horizontally, and then you can go wherever you want vertically. Then we have the 3-point center rectangle. So same thing, you're going to start with the line here, and it starts from the center. So now you're just going to, it's a little bit different, but pretty similar to the last one. But you can play around with this if you want. And then the last one we have is the parallelogram. So this is going to be a little different than the other ones, obviously. Draw the line outward, and instead of going just up, you could go side to side if you want. And I'll show you how this connects to the relations that I'm going to talk about later. As you can see, because you can change these relations on the side to make it just a regular rectangle if you wanted to. So if I wanted to change this to vertical, I could press one of these relations. And I'll show you that in a minute. Anyway, here is the slot, and so this is the one I said, think of it like a football field. And you can also see the construction line here. So as I pull this slot out, you can see that the slot is in relation to the construction line. And the second slot would be the center point. So you start here. Kind of looks like a center line, do you think? And yeah, same slot, a little bit different starting points. Then we have an arc slot, so as you can imagine, it's going to look like an arc. And I can do this however I want. I'm going to do it like this. And you have an arc. And you can set that in any direction you want, play around with that. And then the last one would be the center point arc slot. So start from the center, and you can kind of choose how far around the circle you want to do, and then choose how big you want the slot to be. Play around with that. Then we just have a regular circle. So as you can imagine, just a regular circle, and looks like that. Then we have a perimeter circle. So we kind of play around with that. Then we have our arcs. So in this one you can just kind of choose, it's like a sketch of a circle, except you can choose how far around the circle you want to go. And then here's our tangent arc. So this one you're actually going to see that you have to connect to another. So I'm going to put out a parallelogram, for example, and draw a tangent arc to it. So say I attach it there. It's going to draw a tangent to the other drawing, and then you can just kind of extend out wherever you want to go. It kind of looks like a slot, but yeah, you can play around with that. And then we have the 3-point arc, our last arc. So kind of play around with this. Yeah, a couple different ways to do that. And then we have our polygon, which is our last sketch today. Kind of see that, but it's kind of just adjust the, yeah, so that's what the polygon looks like. And then there's a couple different types of sketches you can do, but I mean, feel free to play around with those. They're all pretty simple. So the next important thing with basic sketching is smart dimension. So this tool is going to allow you to define your measurement. So as you can see in this bottom right shape, I defined it as 83.43 units, whatever it is. But it kind of allows you to just set the length of what you're making, and so it doesn't change. And there's a couple different types of dimensions. You have the horizontal, vertical, and baseline. Most of the time you're just going to be using the regular smart dimension, and you'll see that with time after you practice. But yeah, it makes it a fixed measurement, and I'll go ahead and show you that in Solidworks. So the basics of smart dimension, say I take out a regular corner rectangle and make that here and say, hey, I want to make this top part 5 units or whatever, right? So I can draw this smart dimension out after clicking that smart dimension button and say I want to make it 5 inches, right? And modified it to 5 inches, and now it's defined with that length. Same thing with, say, a circle. If I drew this out and wanted to make the radius a certain length, I could say, hey, I want to make this 7 inches, the radius 7 inches. So I put a 7 in there and modified it to 7 inches. And now the radius is defined. So our last topic of today is going to be relations, and so these are basically used to define between or on parts of the sketch in comparison to the plane that it's on. So say this is on the front plane, you can see that it's centered here, and these little green things indicate, so this one indicates it's horizontal, and these indicate that it's vertical in relation to the front plane. And there's a couple different types of relations, and as you can see, the horizontal and vertical, which I just talked about, and then there's fixed, so you can't move the shape. It's fixed to its relation to the plane. And then you can draw parallel, collinear, equal relations. There's a few different other types out there, but these are the most basic ones. And I'll show you that in SolidWorks real quick. So say I have my polygon here in SolidWorks. As you can see, here's a relation between this line and the circle on the inside. And by the way, this is a construction line that allows SolidWorks to say, okay, this is like a perfect hexagon, right? Round, because you have tangent lines here, and this indicates the patterned effect that's indicated around on all of these sides. And this one also indicates that it's tangent, that there's a bunch of tangent lines to this circle. And say I wanted to create my own relation. So if I click on the sketch and say I want to add a relation, I could say, hey, maybe I want this line here to be vertical. So I can click on vertical, and all of a sudden, now you have a hexagon, which these lines are vertical in comparison to the front plane. And, same thing with a parallelogram. If I wanted to draw a parallelogram here and say, I want this line to be horizontal, I could say ding, and that would be horizontal to the plane. And then there's fixed. You could fix a relation if you want, so that when you change other ones, this one won't be affected. And yeah, you can play around with the other relations as you make more sketches.